Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and as you can see I've got a guest on today, a great guest in Younes Talks Football, or Younes H-H, so I'm sure many of you know him by over the years, the OG of Chelsea YouTube, a good friend of mine. Great to chat to him about all things Chelsea, Frank Lampard, Kai Havertz, the season and more, and also a little bit on his channel. Why did he take a break from making Chelsea videos, and now why is he back with Younes Talks Football, looking at the Chelsea community online, how it's grown over the years and his opinions on that and more. I hope you enjoy watching the discussion. Please give the video a like if you want to see more guests on the channel in the future. Also, this is going to be available as an audio type podcast, so please look in the description box below. There'll be a link to iTunes, Spotify, all of that, so you can download that as well. But let's get to the discussion now. Okay, so the first thing I want to ask you is coming back to Chelsea YouTube. That's cool. That's the first thing I want to talk to you about, because what was it? A month or two ago, you were saying, you know, I'm sort of done making Chelsea YouTube videos. I want to make my own podcast.
About 3 months, 3 months ago.
Sorry,
3 months ago.
You know how current things are. Time passes,
flies,
time flies. And then out of nowhere, you're back. How did this happen?
It was a weird process, man. Weird process, and I think there was many factors. The whole direction of where it looked like football in general was going, the toxicity specifically online, not towards me, just in general. Obviously, there was like any YouTuber you would know. We'll get some, but you got to get thick skin. It's not a problem. Just the state overall, coinciding with how everything was looking in terms of just my personal life. It was just all, I don't know if it was, now I look back, it looked like I was putting all of that blame on football only, whereas I'm looking at other factors. That put me off, and that's when I thought, no, you know what, this is getting draining. It's getting draining, and yeah, do I really want this as much as I did before? And that's when I decided, you know what, let me take a different direction. Let me do what I'm going to enjoy. And yeah, about 2 months away, did a lot of like, what's the word? Like self-development, really just, you know, calming things down, looking at things from outside the box, really analyzing things all over again. With time across those 2 months, that's when I began to see things popping up in terms of Chelsea and football. The football came back, so the season restarted. And I thought, let me watch, right? I'm not gonna talk about it, because that was part of what was getting draining, just talking about it and repeating the same things on terms of where football's going as a whole. I thought, let me watch, and I was watching. Next thing I know, I told myself I'm going to stop talking about football. I'm going to, you know, try and pull myself away. I'm going to just maybe watch and then just forget about it. I found myself watching and then talking more about it. I found myself looking at other games which I don't normally look at. I'm just like, okay, so this is just who I am, really, isn't it? Like, me and football are pretty much inseparable. As well as taking that break and looking at other things, that helped a lot. Really spent some time, more time with family, more time with friends, it done really, really, really good things. And then that's when I thought, no, you know what? The problem isn't just football. It's just just things outside of football, just in terms of my personal life and where that was going. My job and all of that as well, the furlough scheme, like all of that kicked in, right? So it all took a toll. That's when I just started to reflect again and go, you know what? I'm still talking about football, probably more than ever. Things are looking exciting. I'm like, no, you know what? Let me jump on, and instead of trying to close everything away, let me give that opinion and stick to my guns, and no matter what. And don't let others influence what I'm trying to think. Don't let others influence how I'm thinking about things. I'm my own person. I'll give my opinion. I'll be happy to think positively, and whoever likes it, likes it. Whoever doesn't. Simple as that. You can't please everyone. So I took that new attitude, and I thought, you know what? Spoke with my dad as well. He gave me a little boost, and he was like, you know what? You're good at it. Talk about football again. And I was like, you know what? Let me think about this. So I thought about it, and I thought, let me restart completely fresh, new motivation, new chapter, new angle, and that's where I decided to just make a new channel altogether and start from zero. And it's honestly done wonders. Whereas now, like, enjoying football, but also looking at my own personal life and taking a different mental approach towards that, and it's helped. Everything's looking a lot better than it did before I started considering all of this. So yeah, amazing.
I think I can relate to so much of that. I mean, it was similar with me with my channel, you know, taking that 3-year break away from doing videos. And funny enough, it's, you know, sort of, you know, speaking to you now, when we did that collab on your channel, what was it, March 2019, I think it was, when Sarri was still in charge. And that, you know, up till then, I wasn't really thinking about coming back to YouTube, and that inspired me. And having those 3 years away to focus on other things, focus, as you've said, on self-development, of maturing, you know, mentally, how I was, you know, before uni to after uni. I think that all of those things are so important. And it's, you know, we are living in the middle of a pandemic as well. So I think that there's just natural tendency, and you have to accept sometimes you are going to feel low. That's just the natural case of where we are. But I agree, it's about sort of, also, you know, it's supposed to be fun. You know, it's. I think sometimes you can sort of get too serious about football.
Exactly.
And there's a reason why I started doing this in 2014. It wasn't because, you know, I wanted to go viral, I wanted to do this, do that, or you know, for people to think, you know, my opinion was the best out of any others. It was just because I, like you, I talked about Chelsea on a constant basis. It probably actually helps that I talk less to my friends about Chelsea, because when I don't have my YouTube channel, I probably annoy them speaking about Chelsea so much. So this is almost like therapy for me as well.
Yeah, I relate completely. And that was the thing. I started to really not look at the fun of it. You know, I started to take it too seriously. And that's where I realized it wasn't me taking football too seriously. It was me taking pretty much everything too seriously and then putting the blame on football, where that was something I realized with time. That was something I realized after I stopped. And throughout that process, throughout that 2 months, and then that realization hit. And I thought, man, you know what? Take it with a pinch of salt. Get back into it. Just, as I said, give your opinion, make it fun, look at things positively. At the end of the day, it's a sport. It's not the end of the world. There are more important things going on. But the passion is there, and you've got to keep that in terms of trying to keep the fun alive. So yeah, and it's exactly the new direction and mindset that I'm taking, not just with football but with everything. So as I said, overall, those 2 months, I don't regret it at all now. I was considering, like, oh, was this a bad decision? Was this a bad decision? But now I look at how everything has panned out, and sometimes things happen for a reason. And it's all just aligned itself to exactly where I wanted it to be. So brilliant.
Yeah, it's great to see you back, because of course, you know, the true OG of Chelsea YouTube. And I guess just before we go into like current affairs of Chelsea, the Chelsea YouTube scene has changed so much, I'm sure, and probably you're the best person to speak on it, because you know, I guess, you know, when football sort of exploded on YouTube, it was, you know, I think even before you still had a channel, you know, you're talking about Chelsea years back. Now there's so many Chelsea channels, so many avenues for people to discuss the club online. Now it's even when I, you know, first joined Chelsea YouTube, you know, it was completely different to what it is now. How
you were one of the first.
Then. Well, it was just literally the only people I could reach out to at the time was you and Joe. That was it. That was literally it. There was no one else who was doing Chelsea videos, or at least to a significant level that I knew of was making Chelsea videos. So I guess you know, your opinions on how it's continued to grow over the years.
I think it's been magnificent. I look at our community on YouTube, right? The Chelsea YouTube community, right? And there isn't any other club like it. I just don't see it. I know other clubs have like fan channels. I'm not talking that. I'm talking just, you know, fans that have made channels and, you know, always just collab frequently, and, you know, are on the networking frequently, and everyone is growing, and it's not just one or two. There's loads. As you said, I remember like starting off, and I thought I was the only one. I genuinely thought I was the only one, and then I came across Joe Zeka, Shout out to Joe, by the way, because he was brilliant. I know he's got a family now and all that, so he's growing. But yeah, I remember coming across him, and I thought, I'm not the only one. There's someone actually bigger than me as well. And yeah, seeing where like we were at that time, and seeing other channels come along, and the growth. We look at loads of other channels in the tens of thousands. We've got some examples that have gone past 100,000 now, subs, and everyone is trying to grow and everyone's supporting each other, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I don't see as many for supporters of other clubs helping out each other that way. I just see it with us, and I think that's brilliant. There's all of us growing at the same time, and I love it.
I think it is, and hopefully if success on the pitch follows, that will only help the positivity and the growth of those channels as well.
That's the thing as well, because a lot of people try to go viral. A lot of people make channels and they see like an opportunity, or they see a niche, and they think, okay, if I go off on a run, it's gonna blow up. I'm gonna go viral, right? With Chelsea YouTubers now, that's not the case. We genuinely get more views now with winning rather than losing. And that's brilliant, because then you have no conflict of interest. I see a lot of other fans that have conflict of interest, and specifically with other clubs that are not doing so well. But they know that the moment they have a shocker, they put a video up, it's going to blow. Whereas if they're winning, no one's really bothered, because people come to the entertainment side and people come onto that channel to just see someone blow up on camera. Whereas now with us, myself, yourself, George, Jan, Nini, everyone, right? Anyone that puts a video up, they know now when Chelsea win or have a really convincing result, or there's good news in regards to transfers or whatnot, videos do well. And that just makes things even better, because not only do you want the best for your club, but that helps you get the best for your channel, and it's a win-win. So yeah, that's a positive.
I think it's the best sort of mindset, and it's a healthy mindset. And I've had a discussion with other people who do YouTube as well, and saying that I think there's a lot more channels now who, I don't know if it sounds like a little bit of sort of a egotistical way to say it, but like maybe evolving football YouTube in a sense, or trying to take it in maybe another direction of like, yes, we've seen the fan cams, we've seen the rant videos, but like, we need to sustain this a bit more. Is there another way we can do this? And I think that the healthier way of people having their own channels, having their own distinct voices, like you, like me, like Jan, like Nini, like Louis, all those channels having their own voices, and even other newer channels I've seen popped up as well on Twitter as well. That community seems to be growing with people posting their videos on Twitter too. So it's positive. And I guess, moving on to the season itself, this season, because the last time we spoke, it was very early on, I think, in lockdown, and we didn't know what the conclusion to the season would be. Yeah. Luckily, we did get a conclusion. Chelsea have Champions League football, which was, I think, the big objective of the season. Unfortunately, of course, last weekend, the FA Cup final, but we'll brush over that. I guess just your sort of general feelings on the season itself. It's very difficult because, of course, we had that incredible 3-month break that no one expected with the pandemic that just absolutely halted everything. But I guess just based on your pre-season expectations as long ago as like 12 months ago as that was now, to where we actually ended up in the Premier League and the campaign as a whole, sort of your feelings on Lampard's first year.
If we look at pre-season, right, so our expectations from when Lampard walked into the club up until the end of the season, we've exceeded. Hands down. There's two sides of me to this, because as I've there's this side in terms of looking where we were in pre-season and when Lampard came through, and we were debating whether we'd make top 6. There were people thinking, we'll finish 7th or 8th, and we'd understand that we are cool with that. And that was the first time in years that we've ever said that, because we know that there's it's the beginning of a new era, and there's a novice manager coming through who we love. Youth products coming through because of the transfer ban. Hazard's left the club. We all thought, okay, look, if we finish 8th, we're all right. So in taking that into consideration, yes, we've exceeded by a mile. We've got Champions League football, finished in the top 4. We made an FA Cup final. Never even thought we'd be up for a trophy. We still find ourselves in the Champions League up until this weekend, where we are going to win 4-0. 4-1, maybe. No. So that's the positive side. When you look in terms of what some realists would say, Man United looked all over the place up until recently. Tottenham have been all over the place all season. Arsenal have been all over the place all season up until the FA Cup final, and they left with a trophy. But when you look at the league, if we had teams around us that weren't doing as bad as us for majority of the season, then we might have actually found ourselves in 7th or 8th. Do you know what I mean? So that's out of our control. But it is something that you have to consider to a level, because now you understand where they're at in terms of level, and you understand where they want to be going if they're getting new players in. Thankfully, we're having a blistering transfer market, so it looks like we're going to be jumping far ahead than they are. But is it a true reflection of us really deserving 4th? I think it is, but we have to take into consideration the other teams were not up to scratch. But again, as I've said, it's out of our control, and we finished 4th. That's the end of the story. Now we build on it, get new signings in, look into the new season. These young players in our team have had a whole year experience of true senior level football, Premier League, Champions League, domestic cups. They understand it now. It's up to them to step up to the mark. Lampard's got a year experience now at Chelsea. He's going to be learning from his mistakes, hopefully. I trust him to. And yeah, I'm excited as to where everyone collectively coming together will take the club next season. It's exciting.
It is very exciting. I think that thing about points, which has been pointed out, the level of points we got this year was, I think, out of the last 10 seasons, only one other time we'd actually make top 4. But it was the same thing under Sarri. If you remember at the end of that season, people said, we only got top 4 because, Tottenham were failing, and we got 3rd because Tottenham were failing.
Yeah.
Man United. I sometimes think, I was thinking about this and it was going back and forth. I think the season is the season. It's a unique season. I know that sounds like it's an obvious thing to say, but it's just, I sometimes think that I find that a little bit harsh because, Arsenal and Tottenham weren't good enough. They simply weren't in the Premier League. That's what they were in 1920. What they'll be in 2021 and beyond is, we don't know that yet. But I think you play with the season you're in. I think that the league table doesn't lie. Yeah. It doesn't lie at the end of the 38 games. There were a lot of changes within there. Yes, we didn't expect at the start of the season that both Arsenal and Tottenham would have different managers at the end of it. No one could have predicted that, right? Jose Mourinho going to Spurs, but I think that context is everything with Chelsea this year, as you've illustrated. Like, think about where we were in August. Think about the predictions. If you'd have told a Chelsea fan after that 4-0 defeat to Man United on the opening day that Chelsea would finish level on points with Man United and get to an FA Cup final, get Champions League football, I don't think many would have believed you. And I think that's, I think there's a lot of people who try and sort of have changed the goalposts for Chelsea this season in terms of what they predicted, because Lampard's inexperienced, and that's, I think, unfair based on what actually happened.
I want to point out one thing as well, because when you consider the circumstances, and we still finished ahead of those teams even though they struggled, but you look, we let go of our best man. Hazard left, had no money to spend. We had a transfer ban. New manager walking in who hasn't had any Premier League experience. When you consider those things, youth products coming into the senior team, and not just 1 or 2, we're talking about 6 or 7. No other team that we've just mentioned has done that. Tottenham didn't lose their best man. Arsenal haven't lost their best man. United haven't lost their best man. United, you could say, have had a new manager too, but they haven't had a transfer ban. Tottenham haven't had a transfer ban. Arsenal haven't had a transfer ban. They haven't been forced to promote 6 or 7 youth players up until the first team. Considering all of those circumstances, we still finished ahead of all of them, except Man United, which we finished level 1 points with. So when you look at it, even though they had bad seasons, if Tottenham had no Harry Kane, if Arsenal had no Aubameyang, if United had no, who do you want to point out, Rashford or Martial?
Fernandes.
Fernandes. If they never had their men, okay, and say their best players left, if they had a transfer ban, if they had the circumstances we had, they wouldn't be finishing in the top four.
Yeah.
We have. So that's a statement, I think, because now we're reinforcing. We've got more money to spend. We've got, as I've said, players with more experience now. We've got Lampard with a year experience under those restrictions. Yeah, next year, I think it's going to be a different story. And they are not going to have any boost at the same level like we have this year, because we've got all of those options back in our favor now. We can spend again. You know, all of those factors we now have available to us, whereas they had it available to them already. So it's a big advantage. It's a big advantage.
I don't know if you, just before we go on to, I want to talk about Kai Havertz, who could be, you know, Chelsea's biggest signing. But I just want to ask you on Solskjaer, because you mentioned Solskjaer there.
Yeah.
I think the comparison between Lampard and Solskjaer is a very disingenuous one. I don't think it makes a lot of sense when you
because of Solskjaer's experience.
Well, not only that, but the amount of money he spent on players this year. He bought basically a new back line in the summer. You know, if it wasn't for Bruno Fernandes, I don't think Man United would have made top four. That's not to say Solskjaer's been, you know, just it's been easy for him. You know, of course he's, you know, I think he's done well to get the best out of those players to get them into the top four. How far they were away from the top four in January.
Oh yeah,
but I think it's an unfair one, and I think that a lot of the time what annoys me about criticism of Lampard is it's like where people take out the transfer ban as if it didn't happen, which is just stupid. It breaks because it breaks down your argument. Also, this is Lampard's second year as being a head coach, and it's his first season in Premier League football. You know, Solskjaer has had over nearly 2 years now at Man United. Yeah. He's had longer in management. He had another time in the Premier League with Cardiff.
11 years in management, technically.
You know, Frank Lampard was still playing for Chelsea when Solskjaer took over at Cardiff. You know, that's how long it's been with Solskjaer as a coach. So I think that's a disingenuous one. Do you think that's, you know, something that bugs me? I don't know if it bugs you, because I just think I apart from them both being club legends, I just don't think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, when you put it like that, I agree. That's not to say, as we've said, that Ollie hasn't done a good job. I think in terms of the way he's finished the season and managed to get the team to gel together in a sense, even though he's had, you know, been able to reinforce the back line, been able to buy Bruno Fernandes, you know, Mason Greenwood's done a lot of good for him. So he's got those circumstances that have worked in his favour. And Man United's not an easy job. I mean, that's a given. But yes, I don't think you can necessarily compare the two on the same level. I think Ollie, as we've mentioned, has had many more years experience. Not to say that, you know, as I've mentioned, being a Man United manager is a different level. When you look at Ollie's experience in Norway or his experience at Cardiff, you know, yes, it's coaching, and that does come into consideration. Being Man United manager, though, you know, it's a huge job. It's a huge job. And considering where Man United have been since Alex Ferguson has gone, they haven't had that stability. And now it looks like he's steering that ship. And he's got top four just about, but he's steering that ship. So I give him credit for that. But when you look at Frank, yeah, man, 3 years ago, Frank wasn't a manager. You know, he went into Derby for one season and managed to get them to a playoff. Came to Chelsea one season, we've seen what he's done. We can talk about Lamps when he hits his 6th, 7th, 8th year of management. I think we'll know exactly what he's really made of. But you look at where Chelsea's going, I think Frank Lampard has a much higher probability of hitting success within the next couple of years compared to Solskjaer, that hasn't really found it elsewhere, except for now Man United, where he might. I'm not ruling Man United out at all now, especially if they get Sancho. I'm seeing maybe next season they can compete. They can compete, and I think Chelsea and United might be the two teams that we might see pop back out of nowhere, back to competing against each other at the top. So I won't write him off, but yeah, to compare him with Lampard, you can't have a direct comparison between Ollie and Lamps, no.
So going into Kai Havertz, because the last time we spoke, this was a player that I don't think was even being talked about as a potential target for Chelsea. A bit like Timo Werner out of nowhere. Kai Havertz, I mean, I remember saying all through lockdown that midfield was the one area Chelsea really didn't need to strengthen in. But it appears that Chelsea are all set to maybe break their transfer record. What do you think about Kai Havertz? Do you think he's a player worth that amount of money? Do you think he's going to be transformative to us if we bring him in? Were you shocked when you saw how serious it actually was, the Chelsea interest?
I was shocked in terms of how far I could see it going, right? Because as I've said, we've had transfer windows lately where it's been, borderline a joke, and it's really refreshing to see a window like this, like we're having now, which is looking probably better than our 14-15 one. So that's really good. When I saw how serious those links were with Havertz, that's when I started to get a bit surprised. But I think he's a top player, top player. Young, a midfielder with a dynamic that I think we need. We need someone that's technical enough, that's physical, that can track back, that can bomb forward, that can link up, that can dribble, that can shoot, he can score goals. He has a very, very good way about him and a very good direction in his game. And I think we do have that problem that we've seen across the season where we haven't had someone just in behind the striker, or someone that can come in just behind the striker and give a supporting role, or that can help through the middle in terms of providing to whoever is up front, whether it's Tammy or Giroud. Obviously, it's going to be Timo next season, and then rotation with Tammy, I'm guessing. But Havertz, I think, is going to be really, really good in terms of being able to come in and supply down the middle, as well as being able to link up and overlap with Ziyech, having Kovacic next to him, or whether it's Mason or Ruben or whoever. We've got loads of midfield options now. So I think Havertz is worth the investment. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really good buy. Really good buy.
I think there is a sense to me that just convinced me. The more I learned about Havertz, the more I watched him. I remember just watching him one day in I think it was Mönchengladbach against Leverkusen.
Yeah.
And he was incredible that day. He played as basically a false nine and he scored 2 goals, I think it was, on a day. And just, we've lacked a goal-scoring midfielder since Lampard's left.
Exactly.
And there was a sense that maybe Ruben could do that, and Ruben may still turn out to be that player. But there just is a sense to me, a bit like when we signed Hazard in 2012, that there's a unique opportunity to sign, I hate using this term, but generational talent in front of some big clubs. So I think that Chelsea quite clearly looking in, and you can see why Lampard would like a player like Havertz. You just see the late runs he makes into a box. I mean, it's something Chelsea have lacked, and maximising the amount of goals we have in our attack is a big thing. When Pulisic went off injured on Saturday, you felt your heart sunk because you felt we were nullified in that game. And there's got to be a variety of areas Chelsea can score from, especially in games. Do you think he could really help unlock defences and be the answer against, say, low blocks, which we've struggled against this year?
Absolutely, especially someone that can shoot from distance, or someone that can penetrate through. As I said, when you look at who we're going to have next season, you look at Pulisic. If we have Havertz, Ziyech on that right-hand side, and Timo Werner, Ziyech, especially as I'm expecting Havertz to be on that right-hand side of midfield. The two eights, let's say, just in front of whoever's sitting. On the right-hand side of that, I'm expecting Havertz to be there. So his link up with Ziyech, who is going to be a left-footed right winger that's going to be cutting in a lot. I think we're going to see a lot of overlap. And I think Havertz is going to be, impeccable in terms of being able to provide to Ziyech and link up with him, as well as provide to Werner. So, in terms of where we've seen our play this season, Pulisic's been that man where he gets the attention. And I think next season, you're going to have Pulisic on that left-hand side, that's going to have attention. Werner down the middle is going to have attention. Ziyech is going to have attention. Havertz is going to have attention. There's going to be a lot of areas across that front line where teams will have to just keep focus and not just focus on one side. And I think that's going to help open up. That's going to help open up defenses. And I think it'll give us enough ability to be able to come against low blocks and try and penetrate through and have enough talent to be able to get through at and score. And if we don't, someone that can shoot from distance and can pick an opportunity to shoot from wherever across the D or across the edge of the box. Havertz has that. So it's really exciting. Really exciting.
It is. I think it could be. I'm sort of debating and sort of thinking about whether it's going to be the biggest fee in Chelsea history, whether it will eclipse the Kepa fee, which I think we would all like, because then you could sort of get Kepa out your mind a little bit. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, stalling is probably too strong a word, but it does feel like until Havertz plays in the Europa League for Leverkusen and that's all wrapped up, we may have to wait till after then for a deal to be finally made. But the good thing on it is it seems that on Havertz's side, he wants to come to Chelsea. Personal terms have been agreed, which is 50% of it done. It's just about Chelsea dealing with Leverkusen. But before we go, I just want to ask you about, of course, we've talked a lot about next season, but I just guess in a general sort of look at next season, sort of your expectations, where do you want to see Chelsea next season in terms of Premier League finish, in terms of Champions League or the cup competitions, and maybe style of play? Just your thoughts on it.
I think if we focus on the style of play first, I think we're going to see something very similar, but a bit more refined. You can see what Lampard's trying to do. And trying to create that balance between attack and defense. The only problem is that we haven't had a strong enough attack to be able to put chances away on a regular basis as much as we should. And as well as that, we haven't had a defense, basically. So if Lampard has that, right, if he has a defense that he can rely on and an attack that has enough talent to be able to put chances away when they arise, and when you look at these players coming in that are going to create more than what we've already had, you can see he doesn't have to change much. He can leave the responsibility a little bit more to the players and go, look, this is my blueprint. Can you just carry this out? And I do believe the talent that we're going to have coming through will do that. So I haven't got much of a worry in terms of Lampard's his pressing style, his direct play, the link ups and the overlaps in between some of the attacking players, a defense that's stable enough and can get rid of any incoming threats. I mean, that I have no problems with. In terms of where I think we should be looking at to finish, I do think a title challenge should be looked at. Top four, I think, should be a certain. There shouldn't be we're looking to get top four. Next season, I do believe that should be nailed from the beginning. There's no discussion. Top four is happening. I think we should be now looking at the possibility of catching Liverpool and just trying. If you remember that 2013-14 season where we finished third, right, with Mourinho. And he was describing us as the little horse, that was getting loads of milk. And next season will be a big horse. I see something similar, but I think we can possibly go one step further than that. I think we'll have enough quality to be able to try and push Liverpool all the way. We might not do it because, to try and just get players in one season and boom, we've won the Premier League. That's, it can happen, but it's not 100% realistic. So you have to take that into consideration. But we do have enough talent to try and take Liverpool all the way. And retaining a Premier League title is really difficult. Liverpool can do it, but it's really hard. We've done it once. And, Man City have done it. But it's really hard. So I think we can push for a title challenge. And I think we should be looking at that. In terms of cup competitions, we should be aiming for a final again. We've made an FA Cup final with this. There's no reason why we can't do it next season. We should be looking a little bit more focused on Champions League for having all these players coming in. A quarter-final, semi-final should be, I'd say not even a quarter-final. The aim should be a semi-final. And if we can reach that, we're at a good level. So yeah, and then after that, the season after, we can start really talking about winning trophies if it goes well. So
I think that's the perfect balance, because you don't want to sort of get into a phase with Chelsea. And Frank was, I think, the perfect example of sort of the mentality that Frank has, not only, of course, inspired by his playing career, but just the way he wants to instill a mentality at Chelsea. Was the second the final whistle went against Wolves, which all of us as fans were celebrating because we were like, thank God we've got top four. It was such a stressful day. He came out, he was so composed, he was so, this is not This is not a trophy. This is not the end for Chelsea. This is not the pinnacle for Chelsea Football Club. This is only the beginning. And I think keeping those standards, letting that dressing room know what those standards are, because of course he played in the best Chelsea team, in my opinion. You know, he played in that 04-05 team. It's getting those standards through, but also understanding that, you know, even if we do get a new goalkeeper, a new centre back, a new left back, to expect all of that to click. I think Frank also, it's not only about personnel, it's also structure defensively and balancing, as you said, the intense pressing style, which I love, and us being attacking, which Chelsea need to keep doing. But it's also balancing that with risk. How is he going to stop us getting done on transition? That's, I think, my big thing for Lampard next season. It's breaking down low blocks and not getting done on transition. I think that's the big thing, and I agree with you. I think top four, I don't want Chelsea. We've been in the slog for Champions League football for 3 seasons now. I'm so sick and tired of it. I don't want to see it anymore. We need to be certified. You know, third place may be the result next year because Man City and Liverpool may be too good, but I want to see us aiming to be, as you've said, in some sort of title challenge, bloody the nose of Liverpool and Man City again in a sustained way, and then maybe the season after will be when we're serious title challengers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the gap should be closed. Like, the gap should be a lot closer than it was this season. If you look at the points, and Liverpool finished on 99, and Man City a considerable way amount behind, but they still finished about 10 or 12 points ahead of third. You know, so, or us and United. So that needs to be shortened. That needs to be closed. We should be amongst that points region next season. You know, I'm looking towards the 80, hopefully 90 point margin, you know, somewhere there. Because this season, as I've said, you look at the other teams that are struggling behind us, and you look at us, and where we all finished in terms of points, it's pretty low. It's pretty low. So that gap needs to be shortened. And I have full faith that we can do it. As I said, with the quality that's coming in, we should have a team that's deadly enough to be able to try and take Liverpool and City all the way next season. But we shouldn't be, as I said, put, you know, all eggs in basket and go, yeah, no, you know what, we're going to win the league. You can't say that. It's too early. As I said, the season after, we can start really, really talking about it. And if it happens next season, then great. But the aim should be to try and take it. And I agree in terms of Lampard and his mentality. The top four is not enough. This isn't something to celebrate. It's nice. This was the aim, but we've achieved the aim now. We look forward, and we try and, you know, go even further. We try and be a bit ambitious. And with the players coming in, I have full faith that we can do it. Also, in terms of Lampard and his style, I do want to make this point out. I do genuinely believe that the players that are coming in terms of Ziyech and Werner, hopefully Havertz, hopefully some new defenders, left back, centre back, when you merge that with what some of the players already know in terms of training under Lampard, hopefully, and I have no worries and no doubts that Lampard is providing enough intensity. Because as I've said, and I pointed this out in a video recently, he used to train at a very high intensity. And so did the other lads. You know, you mentioned the 04-05 team. Up until 2012, you could just tell that team was just monsters. You know, it's physically monsters. And I know he demands that same level, because when you talk about getting caught out in transition, or trying to press enough and have enough energy maintained throughout 90 minutes, that requires serious physical condition. And Lampard was that. And I know he's trying to install that into the players at the moment. And it will take some time in terms of physical development. But if we do reach that level, I think it could be a wrap. It could be a wrap. That's why I'm really excited, because if the players reach that physical level that we need to hit and then sustain, we could be unstoppable.
I think definitely, and I think that you can start to see it in spells what Lampard wants to do, especially on the attacking side. It's the defensive side that has the biggest question mark on it, so we'll have to wait and see. Before we wrap up, I just want to ask you one difficult question. Who's your player of the season for Chelsea? Because it's one that causes a lot of debate. And, you know, I probably make some sort of video about it. I made a video about it during lockdown, but of course, since we've come back, there's been a couple of players who have maybe risen in the pecking order for being in a shout for that award. Who would you give it to this season?
I think it's between 2 players mainly, right? I'd go between Kovacic and Pulisic. Pulisic hasn't had, well, Pulisic didn't have enough playing time at the beginning, right? But towards the middle part of the season, up until the end of the season, we've seen him just flourish, right? And if he had that throughout the whole season, he'd be player of the season, no question. Kovacic has been so consistent from minute one on the first day up until the FA Cup final. He's just been so consistent, and held such a high level. I don't remember him having much or many games where you'd look and go, "Oh, he had a shocker." He hasn't really had that, and I think just in terms of consistency and the fact he deserves it, I'd give it to Kovacic. But I don't want to like underrate what Pulisic has done. And I do think Pulisic next season has the chance to be that man and be, I hate to say Hazard's replacement. I don't like it. But to be that man. And as well as that, there are going to be other players, new players in that team that, will be in for a shout. But for this season, without disregarding what Pulisic has done, I think he's immense, and I'm looking forward to seeing him next season. I think Kovacic just deserves it in terms of the whole season, so I'd give it to Kovacic.
I think, that's the big thing about, for me, player of the season. It's consistency. It's a bit unfair with Pulisic because when you actually look at the amount, as you've mentioned, the amount when he's actually played rather than when he's been out, it's been incredible. It's
been insane.
His goals, his assists, his performance level. He was amazing at the start of the season in that small period where he scored, a hat trick, and I thought he was incredible then. He's just seemed, since the restart, he's been at another level. Like he's just taken it to another, and he's head and shoulders above every other Chelsea player on that pitch at times. And I do agree with you. I think he could hit maybe 20 goals next season. I don't think that's an unrealistic goal if he continues where he's going. But I do agree with you. I think Kovacic, the only argument against Kovacic has been pointed out, goals. But I think that it's like we've given defenders player of the season before. You don't ever say to a centre-back,
it's not all about goals.
It's not all about goals. And it's about, the naked eye tells you, there's a reason why I'd say a majority of Chelsea fans look at Kovacic and say, you've been our most consistent player. It's not, it's not mistake. It's not like everyone's been fooled. There's a reason why he has been. And I agree with you. Also, a shout for Mason Mount. I think Mason Mount could get Young Player of the Year if he doesn't get Player of the Season.
Young Player of the Year? Yeah, I'd say Mason Mount. I don't want to disregard the fact that Tammy Abraham has finished as our top goal scorer. And that's something, we were all crying out for a number 9, and we were all crying out for a striker that can take that number 9 shirt and beat the curse. And he hasn't had a fantastic end to the season, we can all admit. But especially with Giroud. Giroud's been immense. But Mason Mount, I think, Young Player of the Year for sure. For sure.
Definitely, he's been incredible for Lampard, and I think the story of Mason Mount, I think, has been really good. And it's great that he scored that free kick when he did, because I think it just rounded off what's been a really impressive season for him. But thank you so much, Younes, for coming on the channel. An amazing discussion. Great to talk to you again. I'm sure we'll collab in the future, and hopefully the next time we're speaking, Kai Havertz will be a Chelsea player. We've got a bunch of new defenders, and we're going for the title. So everything will be perfect for Chelsea. And also, we've beaten Bayern Munich 4-0. That's
absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's, go to the bookies and put a bet on. That's happening.
Definitely. Callum Hudson-ODOI hat trick and a Willy Caballero last minute header from a corner. That's what I'm going for. Younes, as I do with all my guests, I give you the chance to shout out where people can find your work online. I know a lot of people watching this will know who you are based on the Chelsea YouTube community, but I will give you the chance. Where can people find your stuff online?
No worries, man. I appreciate that. You can find me at YounesTalksFootball. So that's here on YouTube. My socials, Younes HH on Twitter, Younes HH92 on Instagram. And yeah, that's where you can find me. But thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it, bro.
No worries, man. And all the links in the description box below, so you can go and check out Younes' work. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at Son of Chelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.